Okay, so here we are playing Axis Empires, and one really bright spot found. Thomas was able to identify the thing I'm missing, the thing that makes this playable. This player aid card. It contains a non-procedural indication of what the actual counters do and how you can use them. It's got its flaws. I could definitely use rules references to get you into the rule book and find out the specifics, etc. Overall, it looks pretty damn good towards figuring out a lot of the stuff. Maybe not everything. It tells you all the different support units, what they do, and how they kind of help you. And it tells you how to deal with the convoy markers. Gives you a few other pieces of information about open port, etc. All useful stuff that I've found myself, some of it, having to page through and look up. Others of it, maybe I just wasn't aware of. What's not here? Well, there's some things that have been left out, like blitzes. Some of the effects of the cards, there's no way. You have to trace those through yourself. That's going to be a difficult job no matter what. It just is a matter of getting used to the game. But this will help a lot towards getting used to the mechanics once you're actually dug in and fighting. The cards, hey, I don't mind having to look up and trying to trace those actions and figure out what they're going to do. Or just saying, this one sounds good, let's try it. Either one is actually perfectly reasonable from my point of view. Obviously, if you were playing a more competitive game, you'd want to plan it all out. But somewhere in between seems about right for me. Okay, so what happened here? Because we had to leave, the video was getting kind of long after the May-June turn, and we're here deep in the summer, June, July. No cards have changed, but the Axis has moved forward, Poland and Germany, into the Baltic states. They're beginning their attack. They haven't actually rolled any dice or done anything. Germans have the treaty card out, and they got another bonus roll this time on Yugoslavia. They've added Yugoslavia to the Axis. This is not terribly important in terms of the troops or whatever it provides, but what's important is it gives them a pathway to Greece. If they get nothing else, they've got the shot at Greece and that one big key location there. And that's where Britain's going to have to intervene in the Mediterranean. That's where the fight's going to happen if Britain's not careful. Now, they feel safe up here, but can they move forces into Greece at the same time that they're able to defend themselves in Britain? And we still have German units up there on the Channel coast. And in Norway. Because that error of the declaration of war on Norway is still hurting the Germans here. They're not really going to gain anything off these declarations, but at least maybe they won't get hurt any further. And over here in Asia, well, we got the Japanese slogging through the mud in India, and there is indeed mud there. And I wanted to do an invasion over here at Rabaul, or maybe somewhere up here. Could have gotten to here. Hollandia. Problem with Hollandia? That's part of Dutch New Guinea. I can't reach anything that I can invade on this line that's British without the support units that I need. All I had was an Air Force, which could only go 3. I have no way of getting a Navy in play there, and that's not going to happen until a couple months later. So that's what I'm kind of stuck with right now there. I'm not sure what my card with its blitzes is really helping me, but I've moved into Malaysia and gained some ground there. And that's about all that happened. We'll go to the Allied reactions. There isn't a lot they can do about any of this, to tell you the truth. Well, pretty much done, and the Allies didn't have a lot they could do. The English have kind of split some of their colonials that they've been getting off into to try to interdict any advance and slow it down a little bit. The Russians are building up their border. Now, they had a bonus here. Something the Germans maybe didn't know about, but they think they would go the same way. Russian emergency mobilization. whole big pile of stuff in the delay box now. Most of it just more infantry. But we also have a Russian Air Force available, and that's going to, strengthen the Russian defenses significantly if that gets largely deployed before Germany actually attacks. That's because there are Axis units, German in particular, in the Baltic states. Polish would have done the same though. So Germany's kind of already cast its die. They're on a time clock now. They have to make their attack. Unfortunately, they did this during the summer. It's almost winter. You don't want to go into Russia in the winter for obvious reasons. So how long are those troops going to take to build, to get into play and to build? The Air Force is going to be there, I'll bet. The rest of it, hard to tell. All right, I guess we move it forward another turn. Okay, here in Axis Empires. Let's see what we got. Over in the European side, we had another country moving over into the Axis camp, in this case Romania. If they're adjacent to Yugoslavia, they can do this. And that puts an additional pressure to the south on the Russians. They're going to have to try to cover their southern border as well. They've been, concentrating their forces against the Germans and the Poles who are up here. Well, now they've got to worry about cutting through Bessarabia. It's not a dangerous thing, although there are some German units. They can't come through, but in full strength. My understanding, though, is as long as they're one-step units, they're okay. They can go there, and they can threaten in Greece, both of which are important. Baltic states fell. And then over here in Asia, very little happened, and I probably cheated again last turn. I don't remember what I did particularly, but I see, hey, Central's been muddy all along. Central's not the issue here. It's the northern monsoon that's the issue. I think I made the crossing last turn. That would have been illegal. Couldn't do much this turn. Couldn't use Air Force or anything like that to try to attack this. So, I'm really good at cheating on the weather, though. All right, we'll push forward. Things are heating up enough, though. We know that the invasion of Russia has to come soon. Probably not in the winter, though. All right. I'll reposition the Allied units, etc. Here we're entering the autumn. Let's take a look at some of the cards played, etc. Well, this is for the Axis only. Japanese played Saipan fortifications. That's going to allow them to build fortifications in Saipan. Not a terribly useful card. And they ran into trouble here when I started looking at my plans. One of my plans was, hey, I got a carrier fleet, finally. The Allies don't have any ships. Weather is good, at least over here. I can hit Rabaul. Well, no, it's a carrier fleet. I need to wait for the surface fleet. That comes next turn. Next turn, there's going to be storm in the South Monsoon region, mud. However, it turns out that I can still conduct the invasion. So my attacks on the Brits are not going to be completely without use over there. But I don't know if I want the settlement. I've got India. I mean, I've got this hunk of it. I'm getting down here. They're not going to surrender that. How much of a danger is a Britain without much land presence? And if I get Rabaul and no, I can't remember, the New Guinea, I'm in range. I can start taking Australia considerably. Yeah, am I being a megalomaniac? Probably, but the point is this. I want to get to a certain point where I freeze the game, from what I understand, where I freeze the victory points for the Japanese. And that, the higher I can get that, the better. Makes it harder to win as the Allies. I don't completely understand the victory point track yet, but right now, I've got it up to 2 victory points for me. If I can push that, you know, I'm not going to get it up to here. That's like the whole board, okay? But I'm at 8, which is the big side of this. I'm almost there. I push in another one, I'm up here. It's not that much further to here, whatever. I mean, 15, what does that mean? That means 7 more. Let's dream for a moment here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd have to beat the US. Because that's 4 here. Batavia only counts against me, but Borneo could come in, so that's 5. Oh wait, 6, 7. I think I can do it without beating the US. I just have to kind of hold them off a little bit. I don't know what happens if I win an automatic victory over on this map while Europe is this mess, because the Axis is getting no traction in Europe. I mean, yes, they're getting their allies and everything coming in a row. Well, let's take a look at what they did. They did the Support Nationalists card, which is completely unseeable because of the light. And I think they're run out of these. I think that's their last one. It didn't play to any effect. They managed to add... they managed to remove Sweden's neutrality, not neutrality, but pro-Western stance from that. Sweden would help them a lot in terms of getting the action and traction necessary for Norway, but this should have been done a while ago. Now they're concentrating on the Soviets. What could they have done? Well, they could have removed Italy's neutrality, or they could have chanced things in the Balkans. I wanted to get rid of these negative features that might cost me. Sweden coming into the war against me would be very painful. Okay. And we're seeing the German forces sweeping into the Baltic states, and then some little one-step units dropping into Poland, Romania, Yugoslavia, preparing to move into, to conquest these pro-Soviet areas. Well, obviously I'm not going to launch Barbarossa right before the winter, but, just a thought there. We're going, it's going to happen. It's got to happen. This is the game, right? Okay. And let's see where we go. I guess we go to the other card plays. I'm pushing forward. The Russians do the Western Allies first. Setting up Ceylon fortifications. There's a political cost to these that's possible. In this case, they just, I think, caused a crisis in the Japanese cabinet, which these have been having with regularity, flipping it back and forth, whatever. But the chance of Ceylon being open still by the time that recycles into play, I'd hoped to delay it better, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Even with bad weather and everything, there's just not enough here to prevent the Japanese from moving forward. Over on the West Front, we see Churchill diplomacy again. That had no effect, but they're kind of flip-flopping between, hey, diplomacy, support the Republicans. Those are their only 2 real options that seem valuable. They did gain, some colonials somewhere. Where'd they get that? I don't know why they took a colonial. They took a step, but something gave them a colonial step, and I don't remember what. I'm going to try to piece it together. But they ended up with some Canadians that they shipped over into Southampton and then moved them over to Plymouth, I guess. I don't know. Not sure why. Anyway, upgrading, the amount of troops that are in Britain, whatever. And I guess that's it for this turn. We'll end up pushing into the rest of the autumn. Well, here I am on, let's see what this is. This is the September-October turnover in 41. And unfortunately, I found out yet another one of them little rules I missed. I've complained about the supply rule before, and it was pointed out to me that, hey, this couldn't have happened. It just couldn't have happened because the Japanese could not have gotten supply through here without the major port. This convoy couldn't have been placed without the key port here. The supply that's running, that I've kind of said, I'm slipping it through the Netherlands, East Indies, that's not allowed. Could I have gotten it there some other way? Yeah, maybe with some scratch convoys flying around here, but I don't have that many for long enough. Anyway, what it ends up is, I just couldn't have made this advance into India. I couldn't have made the, I could have made the attack into Malaysia, but I couldn't take Singapore. And I'm looking at it this turn. I can't take it this turn because I can't put support units into play to take it. So I'd be hitting at low odds and just not being able to. I'm going to just kind of say, the Japanese were able to cut through here. They're still able to cut through there. And I'm going to ignore the rule because otherwise none of this makes any sense, right? So I'll continue with that. What we have over with the Germans, they had another victory in Spain, but they're also piling their forces up more and more against the Russian border. That's going to be an ugly fight. It's there's not going to be much surprise there, I don't think. We'll see how that Russian line holds up. But I think the biggest thing is just to allow India to keep cracking. Yeah, this is a fantasy scenario, whatever. That's how we have to look at it because I've screwed up the rules so much that trying to play correctly at this point just doesn't even make sense anymore. And we see the follow-up on that. A little bit of fighting here. They actually committed an air force which got countered. And then carrier in there. This is running supplies still. And we're just trimming India down further and further. And, whatever. We've screwed up so many things. I don't think it makes much difference. Onward to the Allies, and we'll see what happens there. And finishing things up here pretty much for the 1941 year. The Brits pulled back to Ceylon. They're hoping to use the Straits as the advantage to prevent the Japanese from taking that last little chunk before they can get their fortress at least there. And Russians, well, they had the support nationalists still in place, the Germans had that. They had the Churchill diplomacy still in place, which almost provoked an incident down here in the Balkans. It might have been Yugoslavia, for example, attacking Bulgaria or something. That probably wouldn't go well for whichever allied country was there, but it would create a diversion, which would be a pain in the butt for the Germans, kind of like the historical Yugoslavia was. And then the Russians did the Litvinov diplomacy, and that ended up in about 3 minutes of rolling on the different tables, bouncing around, only because I had to look up each thing in the rules to make sure I'm doing it right. But, that's one of the costs on these tables. There's a lot of this bouncing around, and some of them, yeah, you can remember, but if you walk away a lot, like I like to, it's not as likely. Anyway, I'm going to load this sucker up, and then move forward to the next turn. Got some stuff in the delay box from that air combat that was going on. One thing to note kind of quickly here, Total War is not in effect, so Japan's not getting any bonus by having the victory point marker that they have. They'd normally be getting a -2 to their delay reductions. They're not getting, or to their delay rolls. But what they are forced with here is they've got a penalty because of the Western oil embargo. So they're taking a +1 to their time, and that's kind of hurting them here. The Western allies don't have any penalty like that I see. Again, those aren't going to come into play, I think, until the Total War effect comes in. Anyway, back to what I said. I'm going to load this up.